Fusco, Amobian, Connor, and Malik. We'll give everyone just a few moments here. Again, those committee members in the Rules Committee are Freeman, Fusco, Amobian, Connor, and Malik. We do have all members present except for Councilwoman Connor. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Chair.
Okay, very good. It's time to call the Rules Committee meeting to order, and we do have all members present except for Ms. Connor. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes from the last meeting, please?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, very good. All right, we have one item that is coming before us today. Ms. Viviano, if you would please read that in for us.
Item number 1 is a resolution adopting the Akron City Council logo and usage standards and declaring an emergency.
Okay, thank you very much. All of us, we've received, in the past weeks and months, we've been receiving email with mock-ups and whatnot of our logo, and I think we have come to a consensus. And Ms. Somerville, I would invite you to address us at this time.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. And I do want to begin by thanking all the council members who provided their feedback and they voted on the proposed logo. So thank you so much. We are excited as we have been really working hard to create branding for Akron City Council, really showing that we are a different branch, legislative branch, and creating our own seal and label and identity. And so we're excited because this logo will help us do that. Our logo was actually designed by a minority company, Shoe-In, which is located right here in Akron at Bounce. So we're excited to work with them. And so I am just asking, Mr. Chair, that hopefully we can get consensus and get this passed today. I know that Sarah needs to order some new supplies in terms of stationery and those types of things, and we would like to add our new logo to those products.
Excellent. Thank you. Any questions or comments from committee members? Yes, Ms. Amobian.
Yes, I've asked several times. Could someone tell me how much this costs?
Yes, absolutely. Councilwoman Amobian, $2,700, and that's with all the revisions.
And this is design and everything?
Correct.
So $2,700?
Yes.
Oh, it's cheap. Thanks.
You're welcome.
So they were able to do all the work they did. I mean, because we looked at this and revised and they did it for $2,700.
Now let me make sure that's the information that I was provided.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. All right. I see a hand raised, and it's just I don't know who it is. It's a city logo, and there's a hand raised.
Yes, Mr. Chair, that's just me letting you know that Councilman Malik has his hand raised here in chambers.
Okay, I like that. Thank you, Councilman Malik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I particularly want to thank President Somerville for her leadership in moving this forward. I think, I know this has come up a couple times since I've been on council. I think when we were doing the Reimagining Public Safety work and other work, I think it's a small thing, but I think it really is important that we have a logo. And I think it will help us move forward and professionalize the way in which we communicate.
Good thoughts. Thank you. I do not see any other hands. So could I get a motion to suspend the rules and issue a favorable report?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay.
Mr. Freeman?
You're letting me know by saying aye.
Mr. Freeman, it looks like Mr. Neal has his hand raised.
Oh, okay. Mr. Neal?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Not that my questions or comments would change how things would vote. It's just more so a question on the process. I know the company that did the logo, I've done work with them, they do fine work, but it's more so the internal art piece. I just question why we need a different brand from city government as far as the logo is concerned. I mean, there's a lot of things going on that we could have, I think, put our focus and energy and resources behind. Because I don't remember us approving the expenditure. I may have missed that legislation. That's the one thing. I don't remember the legislation coming before council for us to approve the expenditure in this way. So it's more so the question on process. Now, I honestly don't remember us speaking on council the importance of changing our brand. I mean, with all the things that's been brought before us, all the issues that we're dealing with, that's my question.
Mm-hmm. And Mr. Chair, I'm more than happy to address that. In the very beginning of the year, we had set some goals for Akron City Council, and one of the things that we really wanted to do was to bring some more professionalism to the office. And as we begin to do that, redoing our website, creating social media platform for Akron City Council. So I think, again, it is kind of important to create some type of a branding and a logo. And so we have been talking about this for some time. We did send it out to all of council members, and we asked all of council members to give their feedback and to vote on proposed logos. I know I didn't get a chance to hear from you during that process.
Well, again, Mr. Chair, Madam President, I understand the need to improve the website. I understand the need to improve communication with constituents. My question is, it's about the process of us expending. I don't remember legislation coming before council approving the expenditure in this way. And in the discussion about, website and everything, yes, we did talk about improving that. But a logo is something different. We are a separate branch, and it's more important that we operate that way than have a logo that just separates us. But we are the same city. And so that, I've always had this question about process, and when it comes to expending things, it should always come before council. Again, just my concern, when it comes to us with council, expenditures are made, and then we find out about them. It doesn't come to us in the form of legislation. I don't even know if council, if we've said what is the minimum amount that can be approved to be expensed before it comes before council. But there are several things that we have done when it's come to expenditures. This is on the low end, where it doesn't come before council. We find about it after the fact. So it's more about the concern about our process, and just engaging all of council when it comes to expenditure of funds.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Somerville?
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. And just as a reminder to Councilman Neal, all of council does not have, will only vote on something unless it is $50,000 or more, just so that you know that, okay?
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, for that clarification, because there have been several expenditures that have been more than that have not come before council. So, but I'd like for us to even review that, because I don't see that in our rules. Is that, again, since we're a separate branch of government, that may be something that works for the administration, but what about for those of us for council when it's something that impacts all of council?
Thank you, sir. I see somebody else in chambers has their hand raised.
Yes, Councilman Malik.
Councilman Malik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I always am here for discussions about process, but I think it is pretty clear that this is a very minimal amount. This is an amount that often is comparable to the travel amounts that are approved. And it's something we have discussed in the past. We've talked about the ways in which we're professionalizing council. We don't all have to agree on a particular thing like that, but I think there is broad consensus about the value of something like this. If there are broader questions about policies around spending, I think that, there's a time and place for those discussions, but this is about the logo, and it's a very small amount of money to ask for council to vote on, and that's not how our policies work.
Mr. Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, I believe when I made my comment, it was not so much about the logo. As I said, that's not needed to, my comments aren't going to prohibit this from being passed. As I mentioned, I know the company that created it, they do fine work. My question is about the process. And this has been brought up many times and it's never been addressed. And so hopefully, because we still stand in violation of our charter with the expenditure of some funds. This council has never addressed it. All we need to do is bring in legislation and vote on it. So it is about process. And that process needs to be addressed. I mean, we've gone all year and never addressed it. Because we're talking about money at this time, now's a good time to put it back on the plate before the Rules Committee.
Somebody's hand in the chambers, is that Mr. Fusco?
Yes, it is.
Thank you, yeah. There's no violations going on here. I think we should straighten that out right out of the gate. This is the processes, and for some of us to understand, and that is that a budget comes in, be it capital or operating, both. And primarily in terms of the operating budget, what happens is we are given presentations by every department, including council, in terms of where those expenditures are going to go. And presentations and discussions occur. In terms of this particular case here, the process was there's email sent out and there was discussion about it. And there was, some people responded and some people didn't. That's the process. In terms of the capital budget, what often happens is that legislation comes back in. So whenever we go through these budgets, we have an opportunity to ask questions and to find out what's going on. But there's no violations. There isn't anything here. Just I think we got to be responsible because words matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've asked this, I'd like for, when our evening meeting, have the law department there, please, because Mr. Fusco outlined it great. Things are outlined in the capital budget, then they come back before us for a voters' council. There are several things that have never come back before us as a vote for council. I appreciate, Madam President, clarifying that it's $50,000, but is that for the administration? Or is that something that council has voted on when it comes to what needs to be approved under council? That's never been done, but I can think of two things that never came back before council for a vote over the past, since this body has been in session. One was a $100,000 expenditure of the COVID kits that was purchased. Good expenditure, but a breakdown in process. We just found out that they were purchased, never came before us for a vote. The other one is the chief of staff position. That never came before us for a vote. Never came, all we need to do is bring in the legislation to approve that. But it never came before council for a vote. And that is a violation of our charter.
I see another hand raised. Who would that be?
Yes, Councilman Malik.
Councilman Malik.
I just would like to ask my colleague if he would be able to make those questions or requests directly in email to the law department, because it really doesn't seem like discussion that's relevant to this legislation here. And, I think there is an avenue for those questions to be addressed, but I don't think it's here.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and vote. We have a motion for a favorable report. All in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Neal.
Yes, sir, I would like to clarify. My colleague asked about the law department. I have brought this to the law department. I've asked for the law department to be present so it could be discussed on the floor. They have not responded. I've got emails showing that I've requested the law department. This can has been kicked down the road just about all year. So this is the committee, Rules Committee. This is where this needs to be discussed. So again, I ask, please have the law department present at our general session at 7. So that the
I don't know that that's going to happen this evening, but we can certainly discuss it, next week or whenever. And
well, Mr. Chair, I ask that they be at the meeting.
The question that Mr. Malik presented is good. Get them in writing. Make sure that as chair of Rules Committee, I'll make sure that they get there and we can address them, in a session even next week.
Mr. Chair, members of the council, those questions have been asked to council many times over the course of this year.
Okay, well, just get them to me. I don't know.
They've been directed to you as well, Mr. Chair.
Okay, well then get them to me. I'll make sure. There's a lot of requests that come from you, Mr. Neal, and sometimes I have a hard time keeping up with everything. So if you want to get them to me, I'll make sure and get them over to the law department, and yeah, we can discuss it next week. It'd be fine.
Mr. Chair, these questions have been given to you. They've been given to us directly.
I've heard that. I've heard that 3 or 4 times now. So give them to me in writing. I'll make sure that we get them to the law department. We can have them come in, in next week's session, and then hopefully,
Mr. Chair,
if there's questions,
all due respect, sir, if you could just ask the law department to be at our meeting in general session, I'd appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Not going to happen. Thank you. We have them with us next week if you can get those requests to me. All right. Nothing else to come before us. We have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Our next committee today is the Public Safety Committee. Those committee members are Kamer, Mosley, Lombardo, Malik, and McKittrick. Looks like we do have all members present except for Councilwoman Mosley at this time. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. Yes, I'd like to call the public safety meeting to order, please. All members are present except for Councilwoman Mosley. We do need to approve minutes from our previous meeting, please.
So moved.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. And we do have Councilwoman Mosley with us. We have 2 new pieces in front of us today. Our first one is the ordinance amending and supplementing Title 13, Chapter 135, Offenses Against Persons, Section 135.06, menacing of the Akron Codified Ordinances in order to impose a mandatory minimum jail sentence for incidents of menacing against public employees and utility workers and declare emergency. This is brought in from Councilman McKittrick and Councilman Fusco, and I do see we have our Chief Prosecutor Morgan with us.
Thank you, Councilman Kamer. We will defer to the sponsors, either Councilman Fusco or McKittrick, to start the conversation.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I think in light of a lot of things that are going on, had a discussion with Councilman Fusco in regard to this. We've looked at some legislation that came in previously with public employees and cable and line workers and our employees that work out in the public and have been attacked. We're starting to see other members, elected officials and so on, and family members that have been attacked. And I think that was the purpose that we brought this in, to try to strengthen that. But with that being said, I did have a conversation today with Councilman Malik, who's expressed the concern that if we had somebody that was arrested for something of this nature, and we had one of our judges that felt that this person was suffering from mental illness and could be better served not being incarcerated, would the judges have discretion on this? And I guess I defer to the law department in regard to that for the moment.
Sure, I think there are a lot of trajectories that a criminal course can take. And so the fact that the legislation bakes into the penalty a potential mandatory minimum sentencing, that doesn't negate all of the sort of safeguards in place at the front end of a criminal case. If somebody commits an offense and it's as a result of a severe mental crisis, one of the most fundamental things that the court does at the very onset is establish competency. And so if somebody is incompetent, they receive treatment towards restoration, or sometimes their incompetency is of such a degree that restoration is impossible. That if somebody was truly suffering from a severe mental health issue, that wouldn't preclude them getting the treatment. The penalty suggested here as a result of this ordinance wouldn't preclude them from getting help. There's also other different avenues that could be taken in situations where we were trying to address, severe mental health issues that can accompany an offense like this. This suggested penalty, it's not something that would be imposed on somebody who committed their crime during the course of a severe mental incompetency.
Thank you. Mr. Fusco, do you have anything further? Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Councilman Fusco? Do you have anything? No, thank you. Okay, thank you. I do see Councilman Lombardo and Councilwoman Mosley.
You did not see me. Councilman Malik is next to me.
Oh, got you. Yeah, sorry about that. I saw the hand come up. It looked like it was coming from your little seat. So Councilman Malik, thanks.
Say little. Did he say little?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're similar height, my colleague from North Hill and I. No, I appreciate the explanation. I think that was just a question that I had, and I understand the purpose and the intent of the ordinance, and I think it's well taken given how kind of the behavior and the threats that we're seeing from a lot of folks. So I appreciate this being brought in.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Mosley.
Thank you, Councilman Kamer. So, Craig, I hear you say severe mental health episode. I think that leaves room, it may not be severe, they may just be having a crisis. So how do we define that under this rule?
That's an excellent question, Councilwoman, and there are certainly different levels. For instance, somebody can be competent, but they could still have committed their crime as a result of a mental health issue. Right. Because of the nature of criminal prosecution, if we were dealing with a situation, and that's sort of where we get into the court in working with conjunction with the prosecutor's office and the defense counsel, and you're familiar with the process, where we start an open discussion on what is the best for this person, and that also includes the victim in this case. And so what I could imagine is a situation if somebody truly needed mental health treatment, and it wasn't to the level of them being incompetent, but mental health treatment was definitely a component that needed to be had. That's certainly something that could always be added. Right? And certainly that part of that comes with a conversation with the victim, making sure that the victim is supportive of this. And as you know, many times victims are very supportive of people getting the treatment that they need so that they don't keep returning to the system. So I don't suspect that this penalty would ever stand in the way of that, even if you had sort of that mid-level mental health issue that was generating the behavior in question.
So because it says mandatory, and of course if the victim agrees that the person needs some mental health treatment, how do we offset that when this says mandatory? Because what if they need to be in mental health court? Mm-hmm. What if they're a veteran and need to be in Valor Court with a mental health component to that? How do we address that?
Just because this is what I used to do and I can't sit here quietly. Anytime you go into those specialty dockets, the sentence is held in abeyance on the condition you successfully complete all requirements of that program. So it's a pretty big carrot hanging over somebody's head. Please make sure you're following up with your appointments. Please make sure you're taking medication as prescribed. And your sentence doesn't get imposed because of that. So if you successfully complete that at the end, the prosecutor's office makes a motion to dismiss.
Okay.
So that's
Yeah.
how it benefits everybody in that scenario.
Okay, but that's something that would be discussed amongst the public defender, prosecutor's office, because when I read it, it says mandatory. So are we gonna sit them somewhere for 3 days and then say we need to put them in mental health court? Or we're gonna say we're gonna hold the sentence in abeyance and then have them go through one of the specialty courts?
I think having served over there, you understand on every case,
I
everything's on the
do.
table at every time. And then, there's always, and if it's not the appropriate charge, what are we looking at? So there's always ongoing conversations on every single one of these cases.
Okay.
And another component to it is that the 3 days credit time served can be utilized to satisfy the 3 days. So in other words, if there's an incident that rises to the level of an arrest, there's a good possibility they may serve the time on the front end.
Right.
And so the time served can be credited towards the mandatory minimum, and then the person can receive whatever treatment is necessary.
Okay, okay. And then my last question is on the part where it talks about the utility worker. We're talking about city employees, correct?
This is public employees. So this would be city employees, state employees, and it covers all types of utilities, whether it be gas, electric, communications, cable. So it really touches anybody that does that type of work.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Howland, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Morgan, this is a follow-up to that last question. I'm looking at Section A, and public employee is defined somewhat, but does this include elected officials?
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Really? Can we put that in there where it specifically says elected officials? Is that possible for us to amend and do that?
I don't know if it's necessary. Everybody here is a public employee.
So I see an opportunity, if I may.
Yeah.
Means any person holding a position by appointment or election or employment in the service of a public employer. 2 words.
If you're okay, we're okay. Yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying, I think, but.
Yeah, is there a member of the law department here to speak to that substitute language?
I mean, because Councilwoman Holland and I, we are tracking down the same road with this. We've been here and nothing was done. So I think that language being in here is very, very important. 2 words, but I think it's important for it to be there.
Yeah, so it sounds to me, just hearing it for the first time, to be honest with you, it sounds like it's covered. But if you'd like us to look at substitute language explicitly, because it's, we call that a comfort order we seek sometimes, that's possible to do as well.
That's fine. Yeah, it's mostly, I think, Council Representative McKittrick and I, and, this was brought in earlier in reference to booth workers. But then again, in this day and age, it's just, we're all in play, it seems. And that the extremists out there have targeted especially public people, public officials, but then again, it's the civil servants too that we have to protect. And it just seems as though that this is a step in a good direction toward doing that. And it often, and especially I think in terms of the civil servants, they're not the ones who ought to be the targets. If you're going to target somebody, unfortunately, let's just have adult conversation. But I think we're good with changing a few words if you guys are, and we could bring that in even next week, I guess, for a substitute, or not unless you want to do it today, but that's fine.
Okay, moving forward, what would you like to do? Take time?
My hand is up, Mr. Chair.
Oh, yes, Councilwoman, sorry.
No problem. Just curious, do we have something in HR that speaks to an employee of the city who may be perpetrating some type of menacing behavior against another person on staff or an elected official? Is there something that governs that in HR, or would this legislation do that?
Good question.
I can definitely have.
Is there an answer I couldn't hear? I'm sorry.
There is not at this point. HR wasn't brought into the loop on this. I can definitely share it with the HR department and have them provide us some feedback on what they would do in that instance.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Okay, up to the sponsors, what would you like to do?
Mr. Chair, time would be fine.
Okay, thanks.
Motion.
Will you make that motion for time, Councilman?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor for time? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. We'll take time. All right, thank you, Mr. Morgan. Moving on, we do have one more piece, ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into various contracts with Summit County, the University of Akron, and/or City of Fairlawn for the purchase and installation and maintenance of equipment, hardware, internet service, software services necessary for the development of a public safety monitoring network in or around the off-campus housing area south of the University of Akron's campus, and declare emergency. And I see we have our service director, Chris Luttle, with us, and some other folks.
Thank you, Councilman. I'm going to take the lead on this one. Gert Wilms, Chief of Staff to Mayor Horian, Darren Rosnick with our IT department. This is Carrie Jackson. I can give you the brief overview. Carrie was originally an Akron police officer, a University of Akron police officer, and now works an off-campus security detail on behalf of the University of Akron. Chris Luttle is here, as well as Brian Angeloni. What is before council today is a cooperative agreement between the intergovernment agencies. This will cover a pilot project for a camera project south of Exchange. It's become before this council on a prior occasion. It's going to be paid with ARPA dollars. This project allows us to leverage those resources. Not only are we putting $1 million in, the county's putting $1 million in, and the University of Akron is putting $1 million in to basically help us create a pilot project in this particular neighborhood that we hope to work out some of the kinks, learn from, maybe change some things, and reuse that model at other places in the city, based on crime need, based on what ultimately might be, well, might not, is definitely going to be data-driven decisions. But being able to leverage those resources here, be able to leverage the university with some data exploration on the back end of this as well. And I definitely want to sit here and thank the partners to come to the table for this opportunity and to really grow it. It's very important to all of us. Again, the University of Akron leveraging, Summit County leveraging, and I think I failed to mention Fairlawn is involved in this too. Fairlawn YIG, it is an opportunity to build off of the existing safety ring where some CARES Act dollars were already used to build that safety ring, basically the court to the jail and around, to make sure that we never lost any kind of coverage during the pandemic. So I will kick the ball over to Brian Angeloni to really give the details of this particular agreement, and then we're here for any questions.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, thank you. So the agreement that you have in front of you, it's actually legislation approving this agreement along with others, specifically an agreement with Fairlawn as the maintenance of the system. But really at its heart, what it is a cost-sharing agreement. So it's basically a third between Akron, the university, and Summit County. And basically, in this project, what has happened, the county has taken the project out to bid. They are acquiring all of the goods necessary to actually implement this project. And then basically, when it's up and live and running, we are going to take it over and sort of operate it. It's not going to be necessarily eyes on glass, but it will be something that Akron Police Department will be monitoring on a regular basis and can tap in sort of after the fact. But that's basically the gist of the program that's in front of you.
Thank you, appreciate that. Any questions, Councilman Malik?
Thank you very much. It's great to see the partnerships. I appreciate all the partners on this project. And thank you for the information, Ms. Holmes and Mr. Angeloni. One thing, is there a draft agreement that's available?
Yes, it should have been included with the legislation. No? It was
Okay.
not? Okay.
I'm on the on-base. It may not be on the on-base, but we'll check.
Yeah, and the clerk is telling me that it was not sent to you, but yes, it absolutely exists. I'm looking at it right now. So,
Okay.
yeah, absolutely. We'll send that to you.
And then you answered this a little bit, but in terms of how the system will be used, who will kind of have direct access? Will it be UAPD that will primarily be looking at the cameras? I know at one time there was some discussion about students. Like how will it function day to day?
Yeah, so the university will have access to it. The entire system will be tied into the city's milestone. So it'll be integrated into the milestone system that all our other cameras are integrated into. As part of it, they're also purchasing a product called BriefCam, which is, we'll say, an analytics suite for video, which the University of Akron would have access to as well. And they'll be able to use that along with the City of Akron resources, APD, for the analytics of it. The in-depth amount of cooperation between the university and APD, I don't think has really been identified yet until the system is fully in place.
And then do we have a sense of kind of the locations where these will be placed and kind of the type of conduct that you're trying to capture?
We do. I do have a site map, and I'll share that with you as well.
Sure.
Thank you, Councilman. Good questions.
Sorry, if I can just follow up. Just to clarify, I mean, this is different from Flock in that we're primarily looking at pedestrian activity, not vehicular activity. Is that right?
Correct. Flock, the license plate reader aspect of this project, and correct me if I'm wrong, has actually been sliced out of this project. Okay. We stood up Flock independently, so these are two separate projects at this point. The goal primarily is going to be criminal activity. So it's not just that two-dimensional Flock, the license plate reader, it is actually surveillance cameras.
Okay, but it's pedestrian. It's primarily pedestrian activity.
It will capture anything that is in the view of that camera.
Okay, thank you.
One caveat to that, if I may. So the LPR readings, we are going to be sharing that information with the university as well, and I believe that we already are. That process has already started. We were verifying with Flock whether or not that was going to be an additional charge to the city. If it was, we were under no obligation to share that cost, but it was not, and so we are. So just so it's clear.
Thank you, Councilwoman Mosley.
Thank you. Gert, follow up to what you just said. So these cameras not only will read vehicles' license plates, they will do facial recognition as well?
Those are two different cameras. So the Flock cameras are the LPR, which is the license. Those were previously installed by the city. These are more high definition, yeah. So they're really security level with high definition on them to be able to identify people as well as vehicles. Or, colors. BriefCam is that analytics suite does that type of stuff as well.
So yes, facial recognition.
I don't believe facial, and your definition of facial recognition and mine are probably something different. They're surveillance cameras. It's not just going to say this is Terrace Mosley, any of that.
Right.
These are cameras we already use and cameras that the University of Akron already use. So it's really just adding to technology we already employ.
I'll come back. Go ahead.
Councilwoman Holland.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we're talking about the FUSIS platform?
Again, something different. FUSIS is something we create community partnerships with, like, especially in this era, Eurogyro. It's a camera we would provide to that restaurant, and then they could ultimately provide us the feed that they get, internal or external, depending on where they place that. These are our own cameras, Milestone, correct? That we would place in exterior locations on poles that we are putting up.
Okay, but they are networked together using a common platform.
Yeah, so FUSIS, these cameras will be on FUSIS. So FUSIS, think of it as an emergency platform for all different types of cameras for safety forces, so they can see many different ones, not just ones that are on our Milestone. So it's kind of a management platform, emergency management, whereas this is, Milestone is the camera management.
Right.
And then, these are just part of that network.
And to sort of tag on to what Councilwoman Mosley was asking, it is not the intention to store images or organize images according to identities.
That is my understanding. No, we do not have that kind of capacity. There are record retention requirements, so we will definitely be keeping this video to comply with all of those existing record retention requirements. But like sci-fi facial recognition, no, we're not. If somebody wants to correct me, and we're a little further along than I think, but we do not have that capacity.
With respect, I would suggest we all take a look at Sunday's New York Times, which has a very comprehensive discussion about how we are actually living in the sci-fi of facial recognition, and it's not only really commonplace, but I haven't been up to Cleveland Hopkins in the last couple of months, but somebody here might be able to tell me if they've yet added the optional facial recognition scan. It's coming. So it's a software interface. It's not even some big crazy, equipment addition. And what I'm getting at, I guess, is how long will we keep footage and what will we do with it?
And again, the existing record retention laws cover all of that. It depends on what that captures. If it captures a crime, it's into a different bucket. If it is just day-to-day activity, and the longer we store this data, the more we have to pay for it. So we definitely want to make sure we're complying with the data, but recognizing the fact data storage does cost, so.
Well, and it's good that we're aware of this, because I'm going to raise my hand that, from both a stewardship of public funds standpoint and from a human rights standpoint, the longer we hold on to it, in my humble but somewhat informed opinion, the more problematic. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any other questions or comments? I do know we're going to get a development agreement, correct? And Gert, you were going to get us a map?
Correct. We can share those forthwith after this meeting.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Anybody else? I do see Councilman Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to speak to my colleague, Councilwoman Holland, and asking that since we've been voting on more and more of this legislation dealing with technology, that we seek counsel on exactly where things are going and direction. I say that because I just got back from Atlanta, and I was with a state representative from Georgia, and he mentioned that in the Atlanta airport, in the very near future, you will not need to have a boarding pass because it will all be done by facial recognition. And I say that we're passing this. I believe we do need to have some understanding. There was a question brought about 5G and its impact on our community. These committee meetings are where we set the agenda for council on how we embrace issues like this, and with the goal to have an understanding how they're going to impact our constituents and our community. So when Councilwoman Holland made that mention, it related to a conversation I had with a legislator just this week while I was in Atlanta on how this technology is here, and it will be changing the way we do business as usual very shortly. And so I think as we're bringing this technology into our city, that it's important that we have a holistic understanding of the pros and the cons of this. As I mentioned, the issue about 5G and its impact on our community has been brought to us before council, but we've never had anyone come and share that information with us. Never been given the opportunity. So just want to bring that up, Mr. Chairman, so that as we set goals and objectives for next year, we've brought in a lot of new legislation that we look at bringing in from either Ohio Municipal League, National League of Cities, or from just that industry within itself, someone to come in so that we can be better educated, so that we bring the best policy possible. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councilman Neal. I appreciate those comments. Anyone else? I see Councilman Malik.
Mr. Chair, I was just going to ask if consent agenda would be appropriate for this, or if
It is. This went out to bid, I think, November 30th. I believe November 30th, so it's currently out to bid on behalf of the county.
Okay. Would there be any advantage to suspending the rules today?
No, consent works fine, thank you.
Okay. Motion for consent agenda?
I'll second that. All in favor for consent agenda?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. So those are our two pieces. Nothing come before us, nothing else, we're adjourned.
Our next committee of the day is the Health and Social Services Committee meeting. Those committee members are Amobian, Freeman, Baylor, Neal, and Holland. We'll give everyone just a moment to move seats and come back to camera. Thank you. Okay, we do have all committee members present whenever you're ready, Madam Chair.
I'd like to call the Health and Social Services Committee to order. And you said all the members are present?
Correct.
Okay. May I have a motion to accept the minutes from the previous meeting, please?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We don't have anything on the old agenda. We have one piece before us today. This ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to accept and expend funding from the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company Better Future Grant and declaring an emergency. And I saw Mrs. Snipes, Myra Snipes, I think she's present. And I will turn it over to you, Mrs. Snipes. Is that? I don't know why I have my camera on you.
Director Yamini Atkins.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
So Director Yamini Atkins is here along with myself. So Director Atkins.
Hello, Madam Chair. This is Yamini Atkins.
Can you turn that microphone? There's a little switch to pull on to turn on your microphone. Thank you.
Yes, good afternoon. This is Yamini Atkins with the HR department, and just wanted to make sure that we respectfully request that the committee approve this grant that has been received by Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company. It's an annual grant as part of their Better Future Grant Program. A very important grant that has made a lot of impact in the city of Akron. A few weeks ago, Myra Snipes of the HR department was present at council with various students from the MyLC, the Mayor's Youth Leadership Council program, and the monies from this grant will go to fund and for the operation of the continuation of that program in the city of Akron, which has really had a major impact on the youth in our community. So I'm going to let Myra say a few words about this that she wanted to share as well.
Thank you, Director Atkins. Just to add to it, we are champions in making a difference in the community. This past weekend, with city employees and the MyLC, we served over 500 people by doing a community event donating hats, gloves, socks, and books. All of the areas, including the North Side, Firestone Park, Bookville, and East, we are making a difference, and we are creating future leaders, and we are asking for your continued support. Thank you.
But thank you very much for that report, and we saw the students a couple weeks ago in the chamber, and it's quite a few kids. And what you described a minute ago, those are the ways the dollars are spent. How do you spend this money exactly?
Well, again, the money is for several leadership opportunities. Also is spent in providing different speakers and planning programs for the youth. For example, in August, we planned a citywide leadership event held at the University of Akron. We are also looking to partner another event first quarter 2023 with the University of Akron, giving students the opportunity and parents to learn about what programs to keep us in a safe environment. Again, and lastly, we're having a holiday event just to reward those students for their community service hours thus far.
Okay. I know it's also service learning opportunities for these students. So when you go to some of these events, you have to pay for their admission fees and things like that?
Yes, that is correct. And since COVID in the past, we would look at what we define as the top students and maybe send them to a youth event out of state. So that's an example where our dollars would be spent as well.
But you are including other students other than the top students, or are these all top-notch students?
No, they're not top students. We take those and recommendations. You can start up, be a 2.0 student, but we're trying to inspire them to reach for higher goals.
Good, because sometimes we don't realize that we could have a student that is just in need of an opportunity to begin to flourish. Are there any questions by any committee members?
Yes, Madam Chair, Councilwoman Holland has her hand raised.
Please, Councilwoman Holland.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ladies, thank you for being here today. I wanted to share a personal experience with this program. The youngest of my 3 kids was a participant in the Mayor's Youth Leadership Council. From there, after his graduation from Firestone, he successfully attended Davidson College, from which he was an honors graduate, and became a captain in the United States Marine Corps.
Awesome.
I don't think that it's a coincidence. I think that the Mayor's Leadership Council gave him an early opportunity to see firsthand the operations of government, and also to see leaders in action and to get a firsthand understanding of what it takes. I so appreciate the program. I'm so grateful that you were able to resourcefully find some funding for the program. I have a strong suspicion that you would do it anyway. But what a wonderful, wonderful thing. It is my personal hope that, that it will continue indefinitely, and I'd also like to raise my hand and say, more young women. Let's see more young women guided into this program and beyond. And thank you so much for all you do.
You're welcome.
Thank you for those comments. Are there any other hands raised? I can't see Clerk Sarah. Can you see anybody else?
There are no other hands raised here in chambers.
What is your pleasure? Is it it needs to be done on an emergency basis or on the consent agenda for next week? Do you have a preference?
Well, I think if we can get it passed through the emergency measure, it allows us to go ahead and accept the funds and move along. We have programs planned for early in the year as well, and it would be beneficial, but that would be preference.
No problem. May I have a motion for suspension of the rules and
So moved.
emergency?
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Same sign. Well, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor for emergency passage and suspension of the rules this evening? Thank you so very much for what you do. And I believe that's all we have before us. We are now adjourned.
Our final committee meeting of the day is the Budget and Finance Committee. It will begin at 3 o'clock. Those committee members are Freeman, Amobian, Malik, Baylor, and Lombardo. Again, that's the Budget and Finance Committee, and it will begin at 3 o'clock. Thank you.